Kicked out my wife and stepdaughter after they tried to erase my son from the family. Now they're begging to come back. Hey Reddit. I 37M have been married to my wife, Lisa 35F, for 6 years. When we got together, she had a daughter, Emily, who was 10 at the time, and I had a son, Caleb, who was 8. We worked hard to blend our families, and I thought we had done a decent job at least until recently. Caleb is my world. His mom passed away when he was 4, and it's been just the two of us for a long time. When Lisa and I got married, I hoped he would find a loving stepmother and sister. For a while, it seemed like he had. Lisa was sweet to him, and Emily treated him like a little brother. But over the years, I started noticing subtle things that bothered me. Emily always seemed to come first. If there was a disagreement, Lisa would side with Emily without fail. Family decisions revolved around Emily's schedule, preferences, and wants. Caleb never complained, but I could see it was starting to wear on him. I tried talking to Lisa about it, but she would brush it off, saying I was imagining things or that Emily just had a stronger personality. The breaking point came last month when Lisa decided to plan a family vacation. She showed me her itinerary, and I noticed Caleb wasn't included. I asked her about it, and she said Emily wanted to invite her best friend instead. I was furious. I told her that Caleb is part of this family and should never be excluded. She argued that it was just one trip and that I was overreacting. That night, I overheard Lisa and Emily talking in the kitchen. Lisa said something like, "It's better if Caleb doesn't come. He always makes things awkward." Emily laughed and agreed. My heart broke. How could they talk about my son like that? He's a kind, respectful kid who's never caused trouble. I confronted Lisa, and she doubled down, saying Caleb and Emily don't get along, and it's just easier to let them live their separate lives. She suggested we stop forcing a blended family dynamic and let them coexist under the same roof but live independently of each other. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's not a family, that's roommates. The next day, I sat Caleb down and asked him how he felt about everything. He admitted he often felt left out and that Emily and Lisa didn't really include him in much. He said he didn't want to cause problems, so he kept quiet. That was it for me. I told Lisa that if she couldn't treat Caleb like a son, then we didn't have a future together. She called me dramatic and accused me of choosing Caleb over her and Emily. I told her I wasn't choosing anyone, I was simply standing up for my child. Lisa packed her things and left with Emily the following weekend. I told them they couldn't come back until they were ready to treat Caleb with respect. At first, they acted like they didn't care, but now the calls and texts won't stop. Lisa says she made a mistake and wants to work things out. Emily even sent an apology, saying she was just going along with what her mom said. But I'm torn. Caleb seems so much happier now. The house is peaceful, and for the first time in years, he feels like a priority. Letting them come back feels like I'd be risking that. I don't want Caleb to think I'll ever put anyone above him again. Last week, Lisa showed up at the house unannounced. She was crying and said she missed me and wanted our family back. Caleb was at a friend's house, so we had a long conversation. I told her everything, how I felt betrayed, how Caleb deserved better, and how I wasn't sure I could forgive her. She promised she would change, but I've heard those words before. This time, I need actions, not empty promises. Emily, on the other hand, is still distant. She sent an apology text, but it felt forced, like Lisa made her do it. She hasn't shown any real effort to make amends with Caleb. I don't blame her entirely, she's a teenager, and Lisa's influence has played a big role, but I can't allow her behavior to continue if they return. Caleb doesn't deserve to be treated like a second-class family member in his own home. I've been thinking about what a blended family is supposed to be. It's not just about living under the same roof or sharing a last name. It's about mutual respect, love, and support. If Lisa and Emily can't offer that to Caleb, then this isn't a blended family, it's a broken one. And I won't let my son suffer because of their inability to adapt. My parents and siblings have been supportive of my decision. They've always loved Caleb and have noticed the imbalance in how Lisa treated him. My mom even told me she saw this coming but didn't want to interfere. She thinks I should focus on raising Caleb in a loving environment, even if that means letting go of Lisa and Emily for good. Caleb asked me the other night if Lisa and Emily were coming back. When I told him I wasn't sure, he looked relieved. That hit me hard. I realized that for Caleb, their absence feels like freedom. Freedom from being excluded, from walking on eggshells, and from feeling like an outsider in his own home. So now, here I am, trying to figure out the right path forward. Part of me misses Lisa and the life we built together, but the bigger part of me knows my son comes first. I owe him a safe, loving environment, and I'm not sure Lisa and Emily can ever provide that. Am I making the right choice by keeping them away, or should I give them one last chance to prove they've changed? Update. It's been a few weeks since I posted about kicking out my wife, Lisa, and her daughter, Emily, after they tried to erase my son, Caleb, from our family. The overwhelming support and advice from everyone here have helped me process the situation better. Many of you pointed out that I wasn't just protecting Caleb but also teaching him an important lesson about standing up for himself and recognizing his worth. That thought has stuck with me as I've tried to navigate the fallout. Lisa has been relentless. She's been calling and texting almost daily, asking to come back. She keeps telling me she sees the error of her ways and wants to rebuild the family. A few days ago, she asked if we could meet in person to discuss things. I hesitated at first but eventually agreed, thinking it might help me find some closure or clarity. I arranged for Caleb to stay with my parents so we could have a private conversation. When Lisa came over, she was emotional. She apologized for everything, saying she never meant to hurt Caleb or me. She admitted that she had been prioritizing Emily because she felt guilty about the divorce from Emily's father and wanted to overcompensate. She also confessed that she had underestimated how much her behavior affected Caleb. She begged me to let her and Emily come back, promising things would be different. I asked her for specifics. How exactly would things change? She didn't have solid answers. She said she'd try harder to include Caleb, encourage Emily to bond with him, and attend family therapy. It all sounded good on paper, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was saying what she thought I wanted to hear. When I brought up the vacation incident and the awful things she and Emily said about Caleb, she looked ashamed but couldn't explain why she thought that was acceptable in the first place. I told her I needed time to think. She left in tears, and I've been replaying the conversation in my head ever since. Part of me wants to believe her, but another part of me wonders if she's truly capable of change. It's not just about her words, it's about Caleb's happiness and well-being, which I refuse to compromise again. The hardest part of this process is realizing that the person I thought was my partner didn't see the same future I did. For years, I convinced myself that Lisa and I shared the same goals for our blended family, but her actions proved otherwise. It's a painful truth to face, but one I know I need to accept if I want to do right by my son. Still, there's a small part of me that grieves the dream of a unified family. I worked so hard to build this life, and realizing it was all so fragile has been humbling. I've been trying to focus on the positives, like Caleb's newfound confidence, but moving on from the betrayal is proving harder than I expected. Another update. After much reflection and reading through the comments on my last update, I decided to have a conversation with Caleb about the possibility of Lisa and Emily coming back. I wanted to hear his thoughts without influencing him, so I asked him how he felt about things as they are now. Caleb surprised me with his honesty. He said the house feels calmer and more comfortable without Lisa and Emily. He admitted that he doesn't miss them much and that, for the first time in years, he feels like he truly belongs. That hit me hard. I asked him if he thought he could forgive Lisa and Emily if they genuinely tried to change. He shrugged and said maybe, but he didn't sound convinced. He also said something that broke my heart. He didn't think they'd ever really see him as part of the family. Hearing that from my son solidified my resolve. He deserves a home where he feels loved and valued, not one where he constantly questions his place. I reached out to Lisa and told her that before I could even consider the idea of reconciliation, I needed to see real, tangible effort from her and Emily. I suggested we start with family therapy, separately at first, so they could work on their own issues before involving Caleb and me. Lisa agreed but seemed hesitant about the idea of therapy for Emily. She said Emily feels like she's being blamed for everything and that it might make her more resistant to change. That was a red flag for me. If Emily can't even acknowledge her role in the situation, how can I trust that things will improve? I told Lisa that this wasn't negotiable. Therapy was the bare minimum. She reluctantly agreed and said she'd look into it. I'm not holding my breath, though. So far, it's been all talk and no action. And on a brighter note, Caleb and I have been thriving. We've been spending more time together, whether it's playing video games, going on hikes, or just having long conversations. He's been more open and confident, and it's amazing to see him coming out of his shell. My parents have also stepped in to support us, inviting us over for dinners and even helping with some projects around the house. For the first time in a long while, I feel like we're building something stable and happy. There's also something empowering about knowing I have the ability to create this peace for Caleb and myself. The journey isn't easy, but seeing Caleb smile and genuinely enjoy life makes every difficult decision worthwhile. I'm finally realizing the importance of putting him first, and I won't let anyone take that away from him again. Even with these positive changes, I sometimes wonder if I should have fought harder to keep the family together. I question whether walking away was the right thing for everyone, even though deep down I know it was for Caleb. These conflicting emotions make it clear that healing takes time, and I'm learning to be patient with myself. Final update. It's been a few months since I first posted, and I think it's time to close this chapter. After weeks of back and forth with Lisa, I've come to a decision that feels right for both me and Caleb. Lisa and Emily did attend a few therapy sessions, but it became clear that their hearts weren't in it. The therapist reached out to me privately and shared some concerns with Lisa's consent, of course. She said that while Lisa seemed remorseful, Emily was resistant and dismissive, treating the sessions like a chore. She even told the therapist that she didn't see why she had to apologize to Caleb because, in her words, they were never really family to begin with. That was the final nail in the coffin for me. I sat down with Lisa one last time to talk. I told her that I appreciated her efforts but that it wasn't enough. The damage was too deep, and I couldn't risk putting Caleb back into a situation where he felt unwanted. I explained that while I still cared about her, my priority was and always would be my son. She cried and tried to convince me to reconsider, but I stood firm. I told her that sometimes love isn't enough, especially when it comes at the expense of someone's well-being. Since then, Lisa and Emily have moved back to her parents' house. We've kept communication to a minimum, mainly to sort out the divorce paperwork. It's been hard to let go of the life we built, but I know it's for the best. Caleb deserves a peaceful, loving home, and that's exactly what I'm determined to give him. As for Caleb, he's thriving more than ever. He's joined a soccer team, made new friends, and even brought home an art project he was proud of, something he hasn't done in years. Seeing him happy and confident reassures me that I made the right choice. We've also started seeing a family therapist, just the two of us, to work through everything that's happened. It's been incredibly healing for both of us. Reflecting on this entire ordeal, I've learned so much about the importance of self-worth and boundaries, not just for Caleb, but for myself too. I let things slide for too long, hoping they'd magically improve, but it took standing my ground to finally create the home we deserved. It's a lesson I'll carry with me moving forward, and I hope it's one Caleb carries too. Even now, I sometimes catch myself thinking about Lisa and Emily, wondering if they'll ever truly change or if this will be a turning point for them too. While I hope they find their own happiness and growth, my focus is no longer on fixing what was broken but building something better for Caleb and me. This is our fresh start.